Good morning. So I have a few minutes before I have to leave English therapy, and I kind of wanted to get more stuff off my chest because these videos I've been recording lately, they've been very therapeutic. Like they have been really helping me be closer to the person that I want to be, which is just like myself. I'm trying to drop the pretenses, trying to drop the anything that is kind of like that I'm attached to that isn't healthy, isn't good for me, or isn't true. Because sometimes some of the fantasies that they're kind of, I'm tempted to say they're harmless, but in a certain way, they're not, because they're leading to me being kind of like dissatisfied with myself, and I don't want that. I want to fully embrace who I am, and I think that is the key for me to having a more fulfilling life and be more, closer to the ground, basically. Because it's okay for you to have fantasies and dreams and desires. It's just that if they interfere with your life, then that's a problem. So basically, I've been trying to just get rid of things, just putting stuff out there so they're no longer in my head, and I can kind of move on from some of these chains that I've been kind of like wrapped around for a couple decades in some cases. There's just a decade, but like that is plenty of time. So yeah, I've been really revisiting middle school because like that was a very formative period. I mean, like any period before, as you're going to school is going to be formative one way or another, because you never really stop growing. So even like when I was in college, I'm in college, but even like at that point in time, at this point in time, I'm still figuring things out, and I'm, as I mentioned before, I'm just doing very well with like just getting rid of all these things. And yeah, so middle school, and I talked about before how like how I wasn't really happy with who I was, and I think that at that point in time, I was doing less of the whole trying to suppress emotions, trying to like force myself to perceive myself as something else. I had this like this desires, and that led to a certain level of dissatisfaction, but it was something kind of tame in a certain way, as compared to how bad things ended up being later on. But still, as I said, it was kind of like bad. I'm um, I'm tempted to say that things were pretty chill, because also like I was closer with myself, and as I mentioned before, I'm more introverted and more reserved. So that's always going to be the case, but I do think that there was a certain level of excess over how just how things were happening. Like I think I have memories with like other people from like that time, but I also have like some memories with just me with myself, and just me tending to my personal interests, and I think that is totally fine. It's just that I think that sometimes I was hiding, until, for example, I was watching something or reading something, I was kind of like hiding from the world in a certain way, because like those were like my safe spaces. I could control the variables, and I could kind of like engage with things and be passionate about things without having to really prove myself or having to put it out there. I was very I was very, like, because as I said, like I was still physically present, but I do remember when I was, like the second half of my seventh grade, and throughout like like eighth grade, how sometimes I feel very out of place. Because I had some health issues, in second half of seventh grade, and basically I was kind of like absent. And the thing I mentioned before, like in this time that I wasn't there, things kept going. So it's just like the small things, I would come back to people having like a some inside joke, or there's some incident, something that happened, and I wouldn't really relate. This is pretty normal, I know. It's just that I'm remembering the feeling. I do remember a couple of times when I was in eighth grade, that it feels like connections were made, and I wasn't there to make those connections. So I was kind of like an outsider a little bit. I was still physically interacting with people, but I think that internally, like it wasn't. There was this disconnect, and like that led to me. And then like when I went to high school, um, it was kind of like a continuation of that. I kind of like isolated myself, and then when I went to the new environment where I could just kind of like be anyone I wanted, I kind of like just kept people at a distance. And part of it was just like my interest at the time. I wanted to. Uh, I was trying to focus on high school, on my learning, on my knowledge, acquiring knowledge, so that I could, after high school, go out there in the world and, be myself, be not just myself. I wanted to be more. I think that is also an important point for me to make, is that I was one way or another dissatisfied with myself, and for a variety of different reasons. Maybe, as I said, I wasn't really connecting with people, so I felt, like a silent place. I was kind of like maybe scared of, putting myself out there. I probably feared, like rejection. I feared that I would, because also like if you just exist in your head, you don't really need to be held accountable for things, because they're only there in your head. And I think that's another thing. Like when you just start interacting, you start socializing. Like suddenly, like there are concrete examples of situations, of actions that you take, and as a consequence you can't really pretend that like you would behave a certain way in a situation, because you have proof that like that is how you would behave. And I think that the version of myself at the point in time was not really up to my standards, so I didn't want to risk feeling disconnected from myself, because there is disconnection from people around me, and that disconnect with myself. And that is very relevant for me to just think about it, because I think that this disconnection, this separation that exists, like, is the reason why in some ways I end up being frustrated, because like this is not how I see myself. And like right now, as I mentioned, like I'm trying to align these different things so that so I'm closer to like being, so the way I see myself, the way that I want to be, is closer to who I am as a person. Naturally, like my principles, maybe not my principles, but like my perception of what I want to be has changed. And as I said, it's probably for the better, because this is healthier, less toxic, less sustainable. So I can just put myself out there and be happy, with the person who I am. And that is all that I kind of like, I at least at this point in time, this is all that I need. I need, to reconnect, like myself with the version of me that, like is out there living the world. And as I mentioned before, I don't know if I mentioned in this video, but like I'm socializing more. So I'm having more examples of, this happening. Also, like yesterday I had like the gaming event, and it was interesting because like I ended up interacting with people, and I think I'm very much I'm doing better. I think like it was a perfect example, because there was some context in which I didn't want to just show up and assert myself, but there were other contexts where I just things, they flowed. I was able to talk to people and go beyond gaming. So that was very it was very interesting for me to say, and realize that I'm kind of like in the middle of the way, which maybe is exactly where I want to be, because it is a combination of who I am, which is a little shy, and but like not shy to the point that it gets in the way. I still went out there and interacted. So I think that I'm finding balance, and I'm happy with this person who I am. I don't necessarily want to be the person that just goes out there and just introduces themselves. Like, not there's anything wrong with that. It's just that that isn't really me, and it doesn't really have to be me. Of course, like if the reason that I'm not out there is because I'm like embarrassed or ashamed or fearful, like I want to deal with that. I want to make sure that it's just like not my thing, and that's kind of like just that. But yeah, but I'm kind of in this, I'm at this really good point. I'm at this really good, point in time where I'm just, growing, and I'm doing increasingly more, in terms of like improving and just changing. I don't say like, I don't even know if like I could count this as a change, because I'm not really changing. I'm just falling into place. I'm just, becoming. I'm accepting and embracing the person who I am, whatever that means. And it's interesting because I'm gaining some definition, about what, like this, what means. And I don't know, like I'm okay with, maybe, I don't know if I could say that I'm super happy with the way, not that I'm not happy, it's just that I think sometimes I'm just like, okay, this is just a thing. I'm kind of like neutral. And neutral is good. Neutral is, like when you, as compared to just like, being negative, maybe after, being neutral, I can start feeling good about, my characteristics and my personality traits. And, like, ultimately, I think that like the idea, because I think like when you have like a negative idea, you may try to supplant it by having a positive idea, but maybe what you need is to be in the middle, where, something just is, it isn't positive or negative. It's just, this is who you are, and it is, as I said, just neutral. I think maybe like I'm having this balance, because I do love myself, and mentally, I guess, socially, physically. Thankfully, I'm at this really good place right now where everything seems to be working. I still haven't tried to write today, so I don't know if we are in a really good balance. But I have no reason to believe that today is going to be any different from the other days that I was working on my novel. But yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap this up right now because I have to leave in a couple of minutes. So bye.